Okay, so if you look at this picture here, this is a picture of the left hemisphere of the brain, and you can see the various main parts of the brain labeled in this picture. So Broca's area is located right in this section here. Right? Can you see the area where the arrow is pointing? This is where Broca's area is located. So in the actual brain, it will be some place near the just above our temple, right? Our left temple. That will be where Broca's area is located. And if you move further back, you will find another area which is labeled here. It is shaded somewhat dark in this picture. And this area is Wernicke's area, which was identified by Carl Wernicke as another area in the left hemisphere of the brain where language functions are located. Now, right in middle, in between these two areas, right, Broca's area here and Wernicke's area, you find the primary auditory area. This is the part of the brain which is concerned with hearing. So there is a very direct connection, or we can hypothesize that there might be some direct connection between hearing and language use, language production. Right? So you have this auditory area located right next to Wernicke's area. Okay. So another thing that you can see from this picture is how the Wernicke's area is located somewhat near to the motor cortex. Right, the motor cortex of the brain is that area of the brain which controls muscle movements. Right, so language is also if you um, remember how we talked about the evolution of speech, or the evolution of the human brain resulting in the development of speech, we mentioned something like how the use of tools is associated with the language. So man, human beings, first of all, they developed or understood how to use tools. They began to use tools, which requires a very fine hand-eye coordination. Right. In order to use a tool, you need to be able to manipulate your fingers, your hand, your muscles in a very coordinated manner. And only then can you really use a tool effectively. So the development of the motor cortex, right, might have led to the development of the adjacent areas as well. And the motor cortex is located right next to these language areas in the left part of the brain. And therefore, there is some, strength or some evidence in suggesting that tool use, the use of tools, might be linked to the gradual development of the language abilities of human beings. Okay. So let us come back to our class. Okay. Yeah. So, so did I mention the various characteristics of these two types of aphasia, Broca's aphasia and Wernicke's aphasia?
Yes, sir. Symptoms, yeah. Yes, sir. What are the characteristic features? Yes, sir.
Okay, so let me ask you then, how do we identify somebody with Broca's aphasia?
Broca's aphasia, his vocabulary would be limited. He won't be able to have grammatical construction. He would be able to say sentences, but in case of Wernicke's aphasia, comprehension would be limited. And
Okay, comprehension. Okay, okay, yeah.
Comprehension would be limited in the case of Wernicke's aphasia, and speech production is not affected in the case of Wernicke's aphasia.
All right. So let me, what you have said is correct. in Broca's aphasia, there is extreme difficulty in in producing speech. It seems as if cognition is not impaired. That is, the patient's ability to understand speech or the patient's intelligence is not at all affected. That part is fine, right? Whatever we say to the patient, he or she can understand it perfectly, no problem at all. But responding is really difficult because the patient seems to be unable to string together words, or the patient is unable to uh, recall the words that are associated with particular ideas. The ideas are okay, the patient is able to understand, but uh, you know associating these understandings with expressive words is difficult. Whatever words the patient can express is mostly nouns. Okay, so nouns seem to be somewhat better preserved in Broca's patients, and it is verbs that they really have difficulty with. They are unable to associate actions or grammatical usages of the words with various ideas. So we can look at an example of the speech of a patient with Broca's aphasia. Let me share this tab. Okay. Okay, I'll play this. Just let me know if you can hear this video, because I'm not sure whether when I'm sharing things, the audio is getting transmitted or not. So I'll just play it.
Can you tell us your name?
Mike Caputo.
And Mike, when was your stroke?
I was 7 years ago.
Is it audible? Can you hear?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So I'll just play it.
And Mike, when was your stroke?
I was 7 years ago,
Okay.
and
what did you used to do?
worked Autodesk, seven sales and worldwide, and very good. Yeah.
Okay. And who are you looking at over there when you turn your
That's
head?
my wife.
Okay. And why is she helping you to talk?
She's a speech.
So you have trouble with your speech.
Yeah.
And what's that called?
Aphasia.
All right. And so why don't you work now?
I do.
And what do you do now?
Voices of Hope aphasia.
And what is Voices of Hope?
Peterberg, and Dr. Hinckley, and myself, founder for me, and I members the members, probably 60 people.
So 60 people are part of Voices of Hope,
Yes.
which is an aphasia support group
Yes.
that you founded.
Yes.
And Dr. Jackie Hinckley is part of that.
Yes.
Okay, great.
It's not a support group.
No,
It's
it's
program.
programs. It's 3 days. Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And and they laugh and talked, music here, just beautiful. It's, you know,
Great.
yeah.
Can you tell me, what does it feel like to have aphasia?
It's hard. It's well, it's speech. It's like words that don't understand. Brain is good, you know, but it's speech like I don't know. It's like words, yuck.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much.
Good.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so that was a video of a person suffering from Broca's aphasia. So you understand how his speech is like, right? It's very difficult for him to construct grammatically complete sentences. So he understands whatever the interviewer is telling him, and he's also understanding, what his wife is telling him from the side, helping him. But it's very difficult for him to connect these two things together into a kind of a coherent response. So that that faculty, that ability to order speech into a proper, sentence or a response, that ability is probably located somewhere in that area, right? Broca's area. So the ability of a person to grammatically structure speech into a valid response, that is probably located somewhere in Broca's area. Now let us look at another video. This time the patient is suffering from the other type of aphasia, which is Wernicke's aphasia. So let me just share this as well. Okay.
Hi, Byron. How are you?
I'm happy. Are you pretty? You look good.
What are you doing today?
We stayed with the water over here at the moment and talked with the people for them over there. They're diving for them at the moment. They'll save in the moment. He'll have water very soon for him. With luck for him.
So we're on a cruise and we're about to
We
get to
will
Juneau.
store it right here and they'll save their hands right there for
And-
them.
And what were we just doing with the iPad?
Right at the moment, they don't show a darn thing.
With the iPad that we were doing. We, like, here?
I'd like my change for me and change hands for me. It would happen. I would talk with Donna sometimes. We're out with them. Other people are working with them. I'm very happy with them.
Good.
This girl was very good and happy. And I play golf and hit other trees. We play out with the hands. We save a lot of hands on hold for people, for us, other hands. I don't know what you get, but I talk with a lot of hand for him. Sometime. Am I talk of any more to saying?
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it, and I hope the world lasts for you.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Bye-bye.
Have a good day.
Okay. So I hope you get the difference between these two, patients. In the second video, you saw how He was really fluent. There was no difficulty with with speech production as such, right? But the what do you say? The grammatical part of the speech was fine, right? All the sentences that he was speaking was grammatically fine, but the semantic part of it, the meaning, that these words are supposed to convey are all jumbled up, right? Uh, None of the ideas that the person wanted to convey were, uh, you know, uh, with any sort of clarity, or the meaning content of the words were severely limited. So this means that um, you know the ability of people to associate meaning with language, right? That part of the language faculty, that that particular ability is located somewhere near the area which is affected in Wernicke's aphasia, right? So when damage occurs to that particular part of the brain, comprehension is affected. The person does not seem to be understanding what the interviewer is talking to him. Like the interviewer is asking him something about some specific thing, something about an iPad or something, but he is not able to understand the question, and his responses are not at all, linked to the question that he is listening. So he probably is able to hear. Like hearing is fine, right? But what he hears is not being comprehended. So the ability of that patient to comprehend is severely limited, as well as his ability to, respond appropriately to whatever he is listening. That is also severely limited. So these are the two types of aphasia that early linguists were familiar with. And looking at these two, various examples of patients suffering from these conditions, early linguists were able to develop something called the standard model. Now, the standard model says that most of the language faculties of the brain are located in the left hemisphere of the brain. So we should know that the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere of the brain, they control the opposite side of the body. If you remember, if you took a good look at the person that we saw first, the person suffering from Broca's aphasia, you would see that he is holding his right hand, right? His right hand is paralyzed. So the stroke which affected the left part of his brain, Broca's area, that also left the right part of his body paralyzed. So there is some sort of, there is a kind of a mirror-like connection between the hemispheres of the brain and the two halves of the body. So when we are moving our right hand, right, it is the left hemisphere of the brain that is controlling our right hand. When we are moving our left hand, it is the right side of the brain, the right hemisphere of the brain that is controlling our right hand. So it is not the same side that the brain is controlling, it's the opposite side. So left side controls the right hand, right leg, and everything on the right side of the body. So another thing about the brain is, except in the case of a very few number of people who are left-handed, even in left-handed people, usually language abilities are located on the left part of the brain. But in a very minor percentage of people who are left-handed, the language ability is located on the right hemisphere of the brain. So the right hemisphere of the brain is usually associated with pattern recognition. When we see the objects around us, it is the right part of the brain that helps us to identify what those objects are. Right? Even when we see people, it is because of the right hemisphere of the brain that we are able to identify faces. So pattern recognition is a property of the right part of the brain. Left part of the brain is more analytical, right? It is the part of the brain which helps us to apply logic, reasoning, mathematics, calculations, and also language. Right? All of these faculties tend to be located in the left part of the brain, which is more, you know, what do you say, modular, right? The left hemisphere of the brain contains more localized functions here and there, right? There are certain areas of the left part of the brain which are dedicated to certain kinds of functions. But the right hemisphere of the brain is more amorphous. It is undifferentiated, right? It doesn't have much specific functions associated with various parts of it, but in general, it is more attuned to, let us say, creativity, music, art, uh, you know, pattern recognition. All of those functions tend to be located in the right hemisphere of the brain. And both of these hemispheres are connected together by a bunch of nerve fibers called the corpus callosum. And in certain cases, when patients suffer from epilepsy or some such disease, the doctors may recommend severing this corpus callosum and as a kind of a treatment. And once this happens, sometimes both of these brains seem to function independently of each other. Right? So the left hand and the right hand are each controlled by their respective parts of the brain. So you might be able to hear something and respond with your right hand, because why? Hearing and comprehension happens in the left part of the left part of the brain, left hemisphere of the brain. And similarly, you can respond with your right hand to that input, right? Because you can hear, and it is the right hand that you control, right? But the left hand may not be able to respond, because the left hand is controlled by the right hemisphere of the brain, which is not able to comprehend. Right. So there is an example in that book which tells us about somebody who is trying to read a book after having undergone this kind of a treatment, severing the two halves of the brain. So reading a book is something which is associated with language, and therefore it will be done by the left part of the brain. So the patient is turning the pages with the right hand and reading, but the left hand does not have anything to do, because it is connected with the the right hemisphere. So the left hand will interfere with the reading and try to close the book or turn the pages to some other thing. So the patient has to actually sit on his or her left hand in order to be able to read the book without interruption. So essentially, these two halves of the brain, they can function independently of each other. It is only this thin connection, the corpus callosum, which unifies us into a single personality. So that is something really scary to imagine, right? That the left part of our brain and the right part of the brain may actually hold two different kinds of personalities. And it also makes us think more about these cases that we often see depicted in the movies about schizophrenia or multiple personality disorder or things like that, right? Our brains are so vastly complex that entire personalities, entire people might actually reside in that in that mass, in that brain. So it doesn't take a whole lot of computing power or neural capacity in order to become a person. Right. There is another case of somebody who suffered from some sort of brain tumor or something, and the surgeons, they had to remove something like 90% of that patient's brain. Right? Otherwise, the patient would have died. But even with that 10% that was remaining, the patient was able to function more or less normally. Right? Of course, several functions were not at the same level as before, but still a distinct personality was still retained by that patient even after losing 90% of the brain. Right? So this brings us to one of the amazing properties of the brain, which is called plasticity. The brain is a remarkably plastic organ. Plastic means something which can adapt, something which can change. So, depending on the circumstances, depending on the requirements, various parts of the brain can take on additional functions. We have all heard examples of how blind people are able to hear much more acutely than normal human beings, or they are able to smell with much greater acuity, much greater power than normal people. That means that the part of the brain which is normally associated with vision may get reassigned to processing other sorts of input. So even when we say that in the standard model, we say that the brain is divided into various parts, each part is associated with the function. There are exceptions because of plasticity, right? Even when normally certain parts of the brain may be associated with certain functions, in other cases, the brain may rewire itself in certain other configurations, which enable other parts of the brain to do the same kind of processing, right? So, for example, we talked about the distinction between the left and the right hemispheres. The left hemisphere is usually associated with language, but that doesn't mean that the right hemisphere is totally unable to process language. Right? The right hemisphere too has certain kinds of language properties. For example, music and songs, right? Those parts, those abilities are, largely located on the right hemisphere. So even if a person is unable to produce speech, right, that person might be able to sing or understand rhythm or music, right? And the lyrics of a song might be okay, right? The patient might be able to repeat the lyrics of the song that they are hearing, even though they might not be able to say anything on their own. So, all of this is, because of this kind of a difference between the left and the right hemisphere. There's a technical term for this kind of a difference. It is called lateralization. Lateralization is the term which is used to describe the association of various functions of the brain with left and right hemispheres. Okay, that is called brain lateralization. Okay. So let me just go back to that text for a while, and let's just see if we have covered much of the things related to aphasia. Yeah, there are some other related kinds of aphasia. The two main kinds of aphasia we looked at, Broca's aphasia and Wernicke's aphasia. There are two more additional kinds of aphasia. I'll just share this screen once more. Okay. So this is again from that chapter 7. Okay, so this is the part which is highlighted. This is about the standard model. So according to the standard model, while we are speaking, the Wernicke's area, which has access to ordinary vocabulary, sends the words to Broca's area, which provides the required grammatical structure, including all the grammatical words and affixes, and then passes its instructions on to the motor area, which directs the muscles of the vocal organs to produce the required output. So this view is what we call the standard model, and this clearly requires the existence of a connection between Wernicke's and Broca's area. So how does the brain, this is how does the standard model explain the production of speech? First of all, it originates in the Wernicke's area, which has access to our normal vocabulary. All the different words that we know of a language are stored. We cannot say it is stored in the Wernicke's area, but Wernicke's area has access to all that storage, stored words. And the words are chosen, and then the words are sent to Broca's area. Right? And in Broca's area, they are grammatically arranged into sentences, right? Adding all the suffixes, all the inflections, all the affixes, whatever, right? Whatever grammatical structure is required, that is superimposed on these words. And then the instructions to articulate them are sent to the motor area. And the motor area controls the various muscles of the throat, the tongue, the larynx, all the speech organs in order to produce the output. This is what is called the standard model. And this means that there is some sort of a connection between the Wernicke's area and Broca's area, and that connecting a bunch of fibers, new nerve fibers, that is called the arcuate fasciculus. Okay, so it is a J-shaped bundle of fibers, which is called the arcuate fasciculus, which connects the Wernicke's area directly to the Broca's area. So sometimes both of the areas are okay, but some sort of damage might happen to this connection. If connection with the arcuate fasciculus is damaged, then that area, that aphasia is called conduction aphasia. So what happens there? The sufferer shows many of the same symptoms as Wernicke's aphasic, but retains good comprehension. So understanding is okay. Wernicke's area is able to understand because Wernicke's area is okay. But Wernicke's area is not able to send any signal to Broca's area. Okay. So that the connection line has been cut. So because no signal is received at Broca's area will simply, take some words from here and there and will simply articulate it according to grammar. The Broca's area is only concerned with, making the grammar fine, right? So as soon as Broca's area is activated, it will simply produce grammatically fine sentences, but it is not receiving any meaningful input from Wernicke's area. With the added twist that he is incapable of repeating anything said to him. So this kind of a patient will not be able to repeat anything that is said to that patient. Okay. Why? Because in order to repeat something, understanding has to be connected to expression. But in conduction aphasia, it is the connecting link between understanding and expression that is broken. So Wernicke's area is simply unable to talk to Broca's area and hence unable to tell it what it has just heard. There is one more type of aphasia, which is called isolation aphasia, which is very rare. And in this aphasia, both Broca's area and Wernicke's area and also that arcuate fasciculus, they are all okay. Right? All three language areas are fine, but that entire thing, right? Both, all three of them are isolated from the rest of the brain. Okay, so isolation aphasia is a freakish injury that leaves the language areas intact, but totally disconnected from the rest of the brain. The victim can neither understand speech nor speak spontaneously, apart from a few conventional phrases and some childish verses, but tends to repeat mechanically anything said by anyone else, though she retains the ability to sing songs and even to learn new songs. So like we said, singing songs and all that is something which is connected with the right hemisphere, so that ability remains fine. But the patient is unable to use any other language function. Understanding is not happening, expression is not happening. Uh, all three of those areas are disconnected from the rest of the brain. Okay, so we cannot just say that the three areas of the brain by themselves will make the patient able to express. After all, the brain is interconnected in extremely complicated ways. So when that area is disconnected from the rest of the brain, it is as good as not being able to understand anything, right? So connection is everything, right? We have to, the brain has to function as a whole in order to make this speech work, right? Otherwise, this won't work. So yeah. So let me pause here for a little bit and see if any of you have any doubts, or did you understand these concepts? If you have anything to add on to what we have been talking about, anything which is related to this, you can. Maybe if you have read that chapter, if you have something which you did not understand from that chapter, you can ask. Okay, another thing about the standard model is Wernicke's area plays a crucial role in access to vocabulary, but it does not contain the words themselves, right? The words themselves are located somewhere else. It is just that Wernicke's area is that part of the brain which has access to to vocabulary. Okay, there's another term which is associated with our inability to use or access vocabulary, that is called anomia. Anomia means our inability to find the words for things. We know the concept, we know what the things are, but sometimes it is very difficult for us to find the word to describe that thing, right? So it is like it is at the tip of our tongue. It's also called the tip of the tongue phenomenon. Sometimes what we want to say is at the tip of our tongue, but we are unable to say it. So that condition is called anomia. It is a normal condition. Everyone suffers from it. But sometimes it becomes, almost pathological. It becomes a kind of a disease. And, certain patients have difficulty finding the words for certain types of things. For example, there is an example in this chapter about one patient who was unable to find just the words for vegetables and fruits. So the patient is able to say anything else, no problem. All other words are fine, but just the words for vegetables and fruits is lost. The patient will not be able to say anything regarding apples or oranges or any kind of vegetables or fruits. So all of this is telling us certain things, that words are organized in certain ways. Maybe they are organized according to the category that they belong in. Maybe all the words for vegetables and fruits are stored in a certain area of the brain, and if that area is damaged, we won't be able to say anything about words or vegetables or fruits. But linguists say that that is probably a very rare case. it is more likely that words of a certain class are located together. Words of a certain class, that is nouns, similar nouns, or words with the same sort of sound structure. Words that have words like bank and bank, BANK, which is the financial institution, and BANK of a river, bank of a river. They have the same, they are homophones, right? They have the same pronunciation. So maybe words like that are located in similar locations, or the general idea that we have to understand from this is that there is a deep level of organization in the brain when it comes to how words are stored. Okay. So based on these things, there is one more thing that we can understand. It is that our language faculty, that is our biological ability to use language, must be in some sense modular. That is, it cannot be a formless whole, but rather it must be divided up into a number of specialized subcomponents, each using a different set of neural fibers in the brain. So it is modular in nature. Modular, the word modular means composed of different modules. We have heard of things like a modular kitchen. Right? A modular kitchen is nothing but a kitchen which is composed of discrete cabinets. Right? We can buy as many cabinets as we want, and we can arrange them in whatever order that we want in order to make an arrangement. So the language ability of the brain is also like that. It is modular in nature. Each part of the of our language faculty is probably located in different dedicated sections of the brain, each using a different set of neural fibers. All of our other faculties are also probably modular. Vision is modular. Okay, again, here we have a definition for psycholinguistics. Psycholinguistics may be impressively defined as the study of the relation between the language and the mind, but what psycholinguists chiefly look at is language processing. That is the details of procedures by which language is produced and comprehended. We have already seen this. Okay, there are a few more speech errors like slip of the tongues, slip of the ears to cover in this section. We'll do that in the next class. Also some other phenomena like synesthesia. Right? Synesthesia is a very interesting thing. It is the association of various other kinds of stimulus responses with speech. That is, in certain people, they are able to associate words with colors or sounds. Okay, so when they hear some word like apple, it is almost as if their brain is perceiving a color. Right. So for them, language becomes a very different thing, something that we are not, we cannot even imagine. Maybe it is associated with smells. Maybe certain words trigger certain smells in their brain. Right. So that is called synesthesia, that kind of a phenomenon. Yeah, so we'll cover those things, synesthesia, slip of the tongue, and slip of the ear in the next class. We still have about 10 minutes left, so if you have any doubts up to here, you can you can tell me, and we'll try to discuss them. Does do you know anybody in your personal experience who has any kind of speech difficulties or any kind of aphasia or something like that? Anybody in your experience? One one person that you or may be familiar with is probably Jagadish Sri Kumar. We all know what happened to him, right? He suffered from a motor accident a few years ago, and he was paralyzed. But if you've seen later interviews of him, you'll find that he responds to songs, and he's even able to repeat songs and sing, but he's unable to produce any other kind of speech. So that probably that is probably a kind of the indicates damage to the left hemisphere of the brain, which has affected the language properties, the language faculties, but the right part of the brain is okay, right? So that is probably one example. Okay, does anyone have anything to add? And let me ask you if you have understood this. Have you understood it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, then shall we wind up for today?
Okay, sir.
Okay, so then we'll meet in the next class. I'll send you some reading material for the next class. Do read it and come, and we'll have we'll proceed with the next topic. Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.